Leeds United might be close to making one of their most intriguing moves of the window, with Noah Okafor looking like he's on the verge of joining the club. The winger, currently at AC Milan, has bounced around a bit in recent years, even spending time at Napoli, and before that, coming up through the Red Bull system. Pretty sure it was RB Salzburg where he made his name. But let's put a pin in Okafor for now, because as exciting as that move might be, there's a much deeper situation brewing at Leeds that's worth unpacking. And it's not glamorous, it's not a flashy signing, it's not a goal machine, it's a fullback. Or more specifically, the desperate need for a backup fullback and the ripple effect that this need is starting to have on the club's transfer strategy. Right now, Leeds are rolling with Sam Byram and young Schmidt as the main alternatives out wide. Byram? Solid. He's shown he can hold his own. But Premier League proven? Not completely convinced yet. Schmidt, on the other hand, looks set to move on. And for his sake, maybe that's the right decision. No need to dwell too long on that. What's interesting here is how Leeds initially looked like they had things under control. They were strongly linked with James Justin, a player who ticks many of the boxes the club seems to be prioritizing. But then, silence. And this silence didn't just come out of nowhere. It followed Justin picking up an injury during a match for Leicester. Midway through the second half, he took a knock, tried to carry on, but was eventually forced off. The problem? No official update. No confirmation of how serious it is. Just whispers, rumors. Some reports suggesting it's nothing more than a dead leg. If that's true, we're talking about a 1 or 2 week layoff at most. Something manageable. But still, no word. No update. No reassurance. Just this lingering uncertainty. And in football, silence like that usually speaks volumes. It's rarely good news when a club clams up after an injury, especially when a player is this close to a transfer. Think about it. A £7 to £9 million move was reportedly on the table. A permanent transfer, multi-year deal. Not a loan, not a stopgap. Leeds wanted someone who could come in as backup, but also push for a starting spot if the opportunity presented itself. James Justin looked like a smart investment. Versatile, experienced, and with the right attitude. But when he went down in that game, it changed everything. And to be honest, this is exactly why you don't play players on the verge of a move. Clubs take risks with these guys, but sometimes they pay the price. Leicester might have sabotaged their own deal. By putting Justin on the pitch, they may have cost themselves close to £10 million. That's a huge chunk of cash, especially for a club not playing in the top flight right now. And now Leeds are left hanging, not knowing if the player they wanted is even going to be available anytime soon. Now, what's Leeds doing in response? Well, there are a few theories out there. Some say they're just sitting tight, waiting to get the green light from Leicester or from Justin's camp. Others believe they've quietly started exploring alternatives. And here's where it gets interesting. One name that's popped up recently is Anthony Kochi, a talented fullback who's caught the eye of more than just Leeds. Everton and Fulham have reportedly shown interest too. So it's not like this is an under-the-radar option. Kochi would be a competitive signing. And let's be honest, Leeds probably aren't first in line for him. But it does point to the type of player Leeds are targeting. The profile is very specific. They're not just looking for someone to plug a gap. They need a fullback who fits the system, who can provide width, who has the engine to get up and down the flanks all game, and who can be trusted both defensively and going forward. It's a big ask, and when you add in the need for versatility, someone who can play both left and right, someone comfortable with both feet, the list gets even shorter. And this isn't just theory. You only need to watch how Leeds play to see how much they rely on their fullbacks. Gmamson, for instance, was one of the standout performers in the game against Everton, at least according to SofaScore. And it's not because he scored or got an assist. It's because he added structure. He gave them midfield options, helped with recycling possession, and added width in a way that made Leeds more balanced. On the opposite flank, you've got Bogle doing exactly the same thing, overlapping, underlapping, constantly moving and dragging defenders out of position. That's modern football. Fullbacks are no longer just defenders. They're attackers, playmakers. And if you get that position wrong, it throws off your whole balance. That's why getting this signing right is crucial. Leeds can't afford to bring in someone who might spend half the season on the treatment table. Sam Byram can do a job, but he's not going to cover both sides of the pitch week in, week out. And with Schmidt potentially moving on, the depth is getting dangerously thin. If Justin's injury turns out to be more than just a knock, Leeds will have to move, and fast. And not just for anyone. They'll need someone who fits the mold. Someone who can slot into that aggressive, high-energy system. Someone who, ideally, can operate on both flanks. And that brings us back to the versatility factor. It's one of the most underrated qualities in modern football. Look back at Leeds' recent squads, and one name stands out when you talk about versatility: Stuart Dallas. The guy was a manager's dream. Midfield? No problem. Left back? Right back? Both wings? Sure. And if you really needed it, he'd probably strap on the gloves and give it a go in goal too. That kind of utility isn't just convenient. It's game-changing. It gives the coach flexibility. It buys you time when injuries hit. It gives you options when a game isn't going your way. Leeds need someone with even half of that adaptability, which is why James Justin made so much sense. He's played left back. He's played right back. He's experienced, smart, and knows how to handle the physical side of the game. But if he's not fit, if there's any doubt at all, then Leeds can't afford to wait around. This transfer window is short, and the Premier League doesn't wait for anyone. If Justin's not ready to go, then the club needs to expand its search. Kachi could be an option. Others might emerge. But the key here is not to panic, just to be proactive. And let's not forget, this isn't just about adding another name to the squad. This is about reinforcing a position that, tactically, is absolutely vital to the way Leeds play. You lose that, and you start to see the dominoes fall. The midfield gets overrun. The wingers lose support. The build-up play becomes predictable. It all ties together. So yes, a backup fullback might not seem like a headline-grabbing signing, but in this case, it could be one of the most important decisions Leeds makes this summer. For now, it seems like Leeds are waiting, watching, maybe hoping that the situation with Justin clears up. But if it doesn't, and if the news from Leicester continues to be radio silence, then the club will have no choice but to look elsewhere. And whoever they choose, the scouting team needs to be sure. They can't afford another injury-prone risk. They need someone who can hit the ground running and be available when the inevitable bumps, bruises, and strains of a long Premier League season come calling. And while we're talking about all this from a tactical and strategic point of view, there's also the very real, very human part of the equation: time. Time is not something Leeds have a lot of right now. The Premier League season is brutal in its pace, and every match counts. You drop points early because of a hole in your system, like lacking depth at fullback, and suddenly you're playing catch-up in a league where momentum can be the difference between a strong mid-table finish and a relegation battle. The lack of clarity around James Justin is a problem not just because it stalls one transfer, but because it paralyzes a whole section of the club's planning. Behind the scenes, the coaching staff is trying to prepare for upcoming matches. They're drilling formations, working on tactical shape, preparing for specific opponents. But how do you prepare when you don't know who's going to be available? If Byram gets a knock in training tomorrow, who steps in? Is it a youth player pulled in with no experience at this level? Do you shift someone out of position and risk disrupting the entire backline? These are real questions that become real problems if the transfer situation isn't resolved quickly. You cannot build consistency or chemistry if your squad is always on edge, waiting for decisions to be made off the pitch. And from the player's point of view, especially someone like James Justin, this is a nightmare. Imagine being right on the edge of a career move, ready to step into a new project, potentially back in a Premier League football, only for an awkward challenge in the 74th minute to throw the whole thing into jeopardy. No official diagnosis, no clear prognosis, just a lot of waiting and speculation. It's not just physically frustrating, it's mentally exhausting. And you have to wonder, if this deal does end up falling through, what does that do to the player's confidence? What message does it send to others who might be looking at Leeds as a potential destination? That hesitation alone can ripple outward and influence other players, other agents, and the wider perception of how decisively the club handles its business. Now, let's circle back to the idea of alternatives. Leeds can't afford to be in a position where one player's injury derails an entire transfer plan. That's not a sustainable model for building a squad capable of competing at the highest level. You need contingency plans, and not just in theory. Actual, scouted, viable alternatives. Players who can come in on short notice and still fit the tactical framework the manager wants. That means identifying not just one or two names, but building a short list of fullbacks who are not only physically ready, but also mentally prepared to slot into a high-pressure environment like Elland Road. And yes, Anthony Kachi is one of those names, but again, there's no guarantee. The interest from other clubs makes it complicated, and we all know how quickly the market can shift. One good performance from him, or one injury at Everton or Fulham, could change the entire landscape overnight. Leeds cannot just sit back and hope things fall into place. That's not how modern football works. You need to be aggressive, nimble, and willing to adapt when the situation demands it, especially when you're dealing with a position as pivotal as fullback in a system that relies on width, overlapping runs, and constant motion. It's not just about defense. It's about offense. It's about pressing. It's about transitions. Every fullback needs to be a Swiss Army knife, able to hold the line, bomb forward, recover, combine with midfielders, and sometimes even step into half space like an inverted winger. These aren't just jobs for specialists anymore. The best teams in Europe have fullbacks who are almost midfielders in disguise, constantly involved in the build-up, shaping the tempo of play. If Leeds want to compete, truly compete, they need players who understand that responsibility and have the fitness and intelligence to execute it for 90 minutes, week in, week out. And then there's the injury risk. Because let's not pretend like the current squad is invincible. We've already seen signs that injuries could be a recurring issue this season. Byram has a history of knocks and strains. Mamsen, while impressive, is still relatively untested across an entire campaign. And we've all watched how quickly one small issue can turn into a multi-week absence. That's why the depth matters. That's why the club needs someone who can be trusted to step in immediately, without hesitation, without a huge drop-off in quality. Because those points dropped in October, they matter just as much as the ones dropped in April. It also speaks to a broader issue Leeds have faced in recent years, the lack of strategic depth in key areas. There have been moments where one injury has completely unbalanced the entire side. The midfield has been forced to cover for defenders. Wingers have had to drop too deep. The press has broken down because one link in the chain was missing. These aren't theoretical concerns. They're lived experiences for Leeds fans. They've seen what happens when the club doesn't get recruitment right, especially in defense. And they're right to be worried when it looks like the club is hesitating again at a crucial moment. What makes it even more frustrating is that the solution is within reach. A player like Justin, if healthy, is absolutely the kind of profile Leeds should be targeting. Strong, versatile, battle-tested. Someone who won't need 6 weeks to adapt or figure out the intensity of English football. But again, if he's not ready, if this injury is worse than initially feared, then the club needs to move quickly and decisively. Waiting around in the hope that things improve rarely works in this sport. Sometimes you have to take a step back, reassess, and go after Plan B with the same intensity you gave Plan A. And that's where the scouts and analysts earn their money. Leeds needs to have options lined up not just because Justin might be injured, but because even if he returns, he could still carry the risk of recurring problems. You don't want to be in a position where you sign a player who's already carrying a knock, and 2 weeks later he's sidelined again. That's how seasons get derailed. That's how pressure starts to build on the coaching staff, on the squad, and on the fan base. Everyone starts second-guessing. Everyone starts looking over their shoulder, and suddenly what looked like a stable project starts to feel shaky. The reality is, Leeds are on the edge of a big opportunity. This squad, with the right additions, has the potential to do something impressive this season. But every piece has to fit. Every signing has to be part of a bigger picture. You can't just throw bodies at the problem and hope something sticks. It has to be precise. It has to be intentional. And with the fullback position being as structurally important as it is, there's zero margin for error. You get this wrong, and it's not just a weak spot. it becomes a recurring vulnerability that other teams will exploit again and again. That's why fans are watching so closely. That's why the silence from Leicester is so frustrating. That's why the lack of movement on alternatives is starting to cause some nervousness. Because it's not just about James Justin anymore. It's about what the club does in moments like this. When things don't go to plan, how do they respond? Do they wait? Do they gamble? Or do they act? Time will tell. But the clock is ticking. The season won't wait. The injuries won't wait. And if Leeds want to show they've learned from past mistakes, then now's the time to prove it. Get the right player in. Make the move. Don't let this moment slip away. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on Leeds United. And make sure to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Whispers are circulating around Elland Road as NICOLÁS GONZÁLEZ, the Argentine winger whose talent has been making headlines across Europe, is reportedly set to arrive at Leeds United in what insiders are calling a transformative move. Sources close to the club hint that the transfer is already in its final stages, with contracts and personal terms supposedly agreed upon, though the club has yet to make an official announcement. Fans are buzzing with anticipation, imagining the impact Gonzalez could have on the team's attacking dynamics, particularly with his agility, speed, and eye for goal. Analysts speculate that his arrival could address long-standing issues in the Leeds frontline, potentially providing a new dimension that has been missing since the departure of key players in recent seasons. The rumor mill suggests that Gonzalez's presence could force tactical adjustments from the current management, allowing for a more fluid, attacking style that might finally elevate Leeds into the upper echelons of the Premier League table. While some remain cautious, waiting for confirmation, the excitement is palpable among supporters who are dreaming of a season where Gonzalez's flair could turn tight matches into memorable victories, and where his influence might extend beyond the pitch, inspiring a team in search of consistency and identity. The speculation surrounding Gonzalez's move to Leeds has sent shockwaves through social media platforms, with fan forums lighting up as supporters dissect every potential scenario his signing could create. Insiders hint that the deal is part of a broader strategy by the club to re-establish itself as a force in English football, signaling ambition that might attract further talents during the upcoming transfer window. Rumors suggest that negotiations involve multiple parties, and that Gonzalez personally expressed a desire to join a team that values attacking freedom and creativity, aligning perfectly with Leeds' recent attempts to cultivate a more dynamic, high-pressure style of play. Analysts are already projecting that his versatility on the wings could allow the manager to experiment with various formations, potentially shifting from traditional setups to more unpredictable, flexible systems. The buzz extends beyond tactical considerations, as some speculate that Gonzalez could become a fan favorite almost immediately, his charisma and flair resonating with a fanbase hungry for inspiration and leadership. While skeptics caution about adapting to the physicality of the Premier League, whispers in training circles hint that his technical proficiency and intelligence on the ball might allow him to overcome these challenges, giving Leeds a player capable of redefining their offensive approach in dramatic, season-altering ways. Further intrigue surrounds the possible timing of Gonzalez's debut, with insiders claiming that training sessions at Thorpe Arch have already been subtly influenced by anticipation of his arrival, even before official confirmation. The rumor mill is rife with suggestions that his integration into the squad could accelerate the development of younger talents, who might benefit from observing his movement, decision-making, and composure in tight spaces. Some reports claim that the club has envisioned a marketing push alongside the transfer, hinting at potential commercial deals designed to capitalize on Gonzalez's rising star power in both European and South American markets. Social media speculation paints images of him linking up seamlessly with existing forwards and midfielders, creating combinations that could see Leeds dominate the attacking third like never before. Pundits have begun theorizing about how his arrival might affect the mentality of the dressing room, suggesting that his winning experience and international pedigree could bring a newfound sense of confidence and resilience to a squad that has struggled with consistency. Rumors continue to swirl about behind-the-scenes negotiations with his former clubs, agent influence, and possible add-ons in the deal that indicate Leeds are going all in for what could be a defining chapter in their pursuit of Premier League prominence and European recognition, transforming speculation into near certainty among fans who cannot wait to witness his impact firsthand. The narrative surrounding Gonzalez's prospective signing is rich with conjecture, particularly concerning the tactical implications his presence could have for Leeds' offensive setup. Rumors suggest that his ability to cut inside, combined with overlapping fullbacks and deliver precise crosses or shots on goal, could force rival teams to rethink defensive strategies when facing Leeds. Sources allege that scouting reports have highlighted his knack for exploiting space, creating scoring opportunities out of minimal openings, which could make him an invaluable asset in tight matches where finishing chances is crucial. Pundits speculate that the club might leverage this versatility to deploy him in multiple attacking roles, rotating him across flanks or even in a central position when necessary, ensuring that opposition defenses remain unsettled. Conversations in fan circles hint at a broader narrative of transformation, with Gonzalez not only contributing on the pitch, but also potentially shaping the locker room culture, infusing energy, confidence, and a professional example for younger players to follow. Rumors even suggest informal discussions about his involvement in set pieces and counter-attacking strategies, further heightening the sense that his arrival could mark a seismic shift in the club's playing philosophy. Meanwhile, international fans are reportedly tracking every movement, fueling a digital echo chamber where anticipation builds alongside speculation, painting a picture of Gonzalez as a game-changer whose impact could reverberate well beyond immediate results and elevate Leeds' standing in both domestic and continental competitions. Amid the excitement and rampant speculation, whispers hint that Gonzalez's impending arrival may have consequences that ripple across the entire Premier League landscape. Analysts are theorizing how his introduction to Leeds' squad might disrupt traditional hierarchies, challenging established teams to adapt to a side suddenly armed with a player capable of changing the tempo of a match within seconds. Rumor has it that internal club discussions have included projecting his potential influence on team morale, fan engagement, and even ticket sales, suggesting that the signing is viewed as both a sporting and strategic coup. Observers in various media outlets are debating whether Gonzalez's style of play will thrive in the physical, high-intensity environment of English football, with some insiders hinting at specialized training programs being prepared to maximize his immediate effectiveness. Additionally, whispers suggest that his presence could catalyze future transfers, attracting players intrigued by the club's renewed ambition and willingness to invest in game-changing talent. While official announcements remain pending, the undercurrent of excitement and speculation has already permeated every layer of the club, from supporters chanting his name online to journalists attempting to parse the next move in this unfolding saga. Leeds United fans, as well as football aficionados across Europe, appear poised on the edge of their seats, waiting to see if NICOLÁS GONZÁLEZ will indeed arrive to revolutionize not just a team, but potentially an entire chapter in the club's storied history, blending talent, charisma, and the irresistible allure of a transformative rumor into one electrifying story. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep getting exclusive news about Leeds United, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to reading your comments and opinions. See you in the next video, Leeds fans.